a short Q&A. Really, we'll have a Q&A as long as we need to, and we'll get all your questions answered and make sure that that you're equipped to submit the best possible application. And yeah, looking forward to helping. So let's dive in. So a little bit about Houston Arts Alliance. HAA is a local arts and culture organization with the principal work of implementing the city's vision, values, and goals for its arts grant making and civic art investments. Our work is conducted through contracts with MOCA, the Mayor's Office of Cultural Affairs, who oversee all of our work. And we also execute privately funded special projects and notably and relevantly to now, disaster. We have a disaster services division who work in disaster preparation. We also assist with local and national research on the state of the arts in Houston. And we also execute temporary public art projects to vitalize neighborhoods across the city. So this is kind of what our funding source looks like. All our funding comes from HOT revenue, and HOT stands for Hotel Occupancy Tax. It's that little dollar that's charged to every hotel room booking, give or take. And that money is collected, and then we receive a portion of HOT funding, and it's broken up in, as you see into the pie chart. So 16.5% is allocated to the Miller Outdoor Theater, 9% for an administrative budget, and 74.5% to grants. And then you can see the grants breakdown here. SASE is what we call an annual grant because there's only one application period a year, and the annuals receive 36% of that HOT allocation that's from the 74.5% in grants. Oh boy, excuse me, sorry. So this is what our city-funded grant programs look like. We have 2 grants that are open 3 times a year that have 3 different application periods throughout the year. And those are Let Creativity Happen and Cities Initiative. And then we have 3 annual grants, which are Festival, Support for Organizations, and the one we're going to talk about today, Support for Artists and Creative Individuals. The SASE grant has awards up to $15,000. It's funded by cash in hand, and the grant term is 1 year. And the SASE 2025 grant year would be January 1st, 2025 through December 31st, 2025. That's when the awarded projects will take place. Getting started. These are important points. So before you apply for a SASE grant, it is vital that you ensure that you are eligible in the first place. So what does eligibility look like? It's proof of age, that you are a legal adult, you're 18 years or older, that you have residence within the City of Houston limits, and we require proof both of age and residence. And SASE is only open to individuals, but organizations would have to supply additional information as well. Also, when you apply for SASE, you must also provide a clear view of a public presentation that is open to the public. And we're going to get into that a little bit later, but move on. So more about residence. When you apply, you will be required to submit documentation demonstrating a physical address inside the City of Houston limits. Sometimes places that feel or maybe seem like they're probably inside the city limits really might not be. And so it's important to verify that, which I'm going to show you how. It is at this website, which there's a link to. In the grants portal, when you apply and you create a profile, there will be a Who is my council member link. And when you navigate to this website, which is provided by and hosted by the City of Houston, you can actually input your address. Let's try HAAs, for example. And you will find out your council member and which council district you're in, which confirms that you are within the City of Houston limits. PO boxes are not accepted as they do not establish residency within the City of Houston limits, and all applicants must upload an image of official documentation that includes a visible City of Houston address with the applicant name included. So what are acceptable documents? State issued ID or driver's license, of course, a lease agreement, phone or utility bill from this year, from 2024. For proof of age, it's similar, Texas driver's license, Texas ID card, expired or unexpired or expired within the last 2 years. We would also accept a valid unexpired U.S. passport book or U.S. passport card, a U.S. certificate of citizenship or certificate of naturalization with an identifiable photo. Those are examples. And an unexpired U.S. military identification card for active duty reserve or retired personnel with an identifiable photo will also be accepted. So I touched on having a clear public presentation as an important requirement of any SASE project. It's required by all grantees across all grant programs. So during the grant cycle, one in-person event or one live virtual presentation is absolutely required. The applicant must identify the publicly accessible in-person space or live virtual event in their application. The event must be open to the general public, benefiting a City of Houston audience. Public presentations may be ticketed, but they cannot exclude the public or limit who might be a member of the audience. And if the event has limited capacity due to seating restrictions, everyone must have equal access and opportunity to attend on a first come and first served basis. So examples of these events would be art exhibitions, film screenings, music, dance, and theater performances, also online arts programming, literary readings and publications, local arts festivals, and other activities like that. Examples of virtual events with public presentations would include live streamed concerts or performance, virtual artist talks, Q&As, and other activities like that. So there is only a restriction on one application per grant program. So as you can't submit two SASE applications. Applicants may submit only one application for each individual grant program. In other words, you cannot send multiple applications to the same grant. Applicants may not use the same proposal to apply for more than one grant. So if you applied for a SASE grant, well, let's back that up. Let's say you apply to a Cities Initiative Round 1 grant, which recently was recently open and closed. The SASE grant application would have to be a completely different proposal, a completely different project. There can't be any overlap. Applicants may not use the same proposal to apply for more than one grant program. The applicant must look at the different grant programs and the objectives of their projects and determine which grant program best aligns with their proposal. Artists who work in an artistic capacity with nonprofit organizations like artistic directors, executive directors, lead artists, resident artists, and conductors must apply with a program that is totally independent of their organization. For collaborative art programs, one artist must serve as the applicant for the projects, and all members must meet eligibility requirements as well. A collaborator is defined as someone who's the co-owner of a program and a generative part of the team. Subcontractors are not considered collaborators. So, yeah, what does an HAA grant not support? They may not support any activities taking place outside of the City of Houston limits, including those in outlying suburbs. So it has to be the public presentation, and all activities have to take place in City of Houston. They can't take place in Katy or Sugar Land, for example, or the Woodlands. They have to be within the city limits. Your program location must be represented by a Houston City Council member verified through the online mapping tool that I just showed you. There's a link in our grants portal to that website. All funded activities must take place within City of Houston limits, and grants cannot be applied to programs outside of the grant term. So activities must take place within the respective grant term. And once again, SASSE's grant term is a 1-year term in 2025. Events with exclusive audiences that don't allow participation by the general public, like limiting the audience to people that are aged 21 and up only, are and events and programming, youth specific programming, I mean to say, is also an example. So in contrast to 21 and up only events, you couldn't have an event that's only open to youth or elementary school or teenage audiences or something like that. For public presentation, and events must always be open to the entire general public and cannot exclude anybody. And that includes gender-specific programming as well. Competitions, award ceremonies, scholarships, cash prizes, fundraising activities and events, sports and recreation activities, and parties and private celebrations are not eligible for an HAA city-funded grant. Additionally, any activities funded by Miller Outdoor Theater cannot be supported by a city-funded HAA grant, since that activity would also be supported through that HOT revenue. Since Miller Outdoor Theater receives that allocation, essentially it would be a double dipping kind of situation. City of Houston employees, elected officials, mayor's office staff, and their immediate families are not eligible. HAA employees, board members, and our immediate families are not eligible. Grants to K through 12 public, private, or charter schools are not eligible. And educational programs like workshops or youth education programs are not eligible. And this is an important one to maintain because in the past, that was a sort of gray area, but we're directed to really tighten up on that. So workshops and youth education programs are not eligible for an HAA grant funded by City of Houston. If you're applying as an arts educational program, your application should center around the public presentation of your programming that is open to the general public. Keep that in mind. Trade fairs, events of primarily commercial nature or consumer shows are not eligible. For-profit entities may not apply directly, and faith-based organizations using funds for any activities which have a primarily religious purpose, and that would apply, I think, to individual grants as well. Those that apply with projects that have a primarily religious purpose or any activity that exists as part of a religious sermon or service would not be eligible. Any activities receiving funds from other HAA grant programs. So organizations and or individuals collaborating on the same project or program cannot separately apply for support to fund this collaborative program. In other words, you cannot have multiple submissions from different applicants for the same program. Multiple submissions to the same grant program from the same organization or individual applicants are not eligible for support. Okay, so with that covered, we want to announce, if you haven't received the news already, that the deadlines have been extended to August 2nd. Obviously, in light of Beryl and the effects and everybody in sort of the recovery process, it's important to give everyone a little bit longer. So August 2nd at 11:59 p.m. Is the deadline for the SASSE application. And that's a Friday. Support for artists and creative individuals. So this grant provides funds of up to $15,000 for specific projects that create and present new works of art or complete work complete artwork or an art project that's already in progress throughout Houston, SASE grants are funded by City of Houston via the hotel occupancy tax and awarded based on cash in hand. Applications are accepted from all artistic disciplines and all creative practitioners, including but not limited to musicians, visual artists, performing artists, textile artists, digital and conservation artists, creative entrepreneurs such as hairstylists, makeup artists, nail techs, gallerists, writers, photographers, arts administrators, all creatives in the city of Houston are encouraged to demonstrate their creativity in whatever form it takes, and are welcome and encouraged to apply. This was rolled out last year, and I want to touch on that. The BIPOC Boost program and the BIPOC Boost formula. So the Houston Mayor's Office of Cultural Affairs, MOCA, has introduced a funding formula boost in the annual grants competitions, which are SO, SASE, and festivals. This formula change provides support to organizations or artists like you, artists and creatives like you, who have been awarded through the same peer panel process, but have historically been marginalized from opportunities like grants. So the boost is specifically designed for applicants who meet BIPOC qualification criteria for their respective grant programs and have been awarded funding through HAA's peer and community-based panels. Awardees under this initiative will receive a 45% increase in their awards with a cap of $20,000. Those points apply to organizations. For individuals, the BIPOC qualification requires individual applicants to self-identify as BIPOC. So let's dive into the grants portal. So we use a grants management platform called SmartSimple, located at haa.smartsimple.com. We have that link everywhere on our website. And when you log in, first you'll create a profile if you've never signed up before. And once you've signed up or once you log in, if you already have a profile, you will be, the first thing you'll see is your application dashboard. You'll see your profile and you'll see the funding opportunities in front of you. I'll just give you a little demo actually. So this is what it looks like. So you would have your profile here where you could update your information, personal information, your address, your phone number, demographic information, required documents, like your like a W-2 or proof of age, things like that. And so once you have created or logged into your dashboard, you will find your SASE 2025 grant and you'll be able to apply. And this is basically what the application looks like. So you will enter the grant amount requested, your proposal title, artistic discipline, and you would just answer, fill in your responses to each of the different sections, your artistic programming, your public benefit, and your budget table, which we'll get into. You'll upload required documents like proof of age, work samples, and you would sign here in signature, and you'd be all through. Clicking Save Draft after each tab is important to make sure that you save your work before you ultimately click here to submit. So I touched on the budget template. So the budget template is a big part of this. It's important to show the panelists how support through the City of Houston would be allocated in your project. And so you'll use the income and expense table to report the full cost of your proposed arts and cultural programming. And if you're ultimately recommended for funding, which I hope you all are, the award amounts will follow the guidelines for the specific grant program to which you apply. I'll show you the budget table, what it looks like. So under stewardship of public resources, you would open the budget table. There are instructions, and you would enter into each, into each field your amounts and description of what that money is being used for. So, if you had a $15,000, type budget, maybe, it's for paying artist fees or something like that. And then this is your income, and there's an expenses section, marketing expenses, artistic personnel and such. Enter a description, enter an amount, and include the amounts of other funding that you have separate from HAA as well. And just make sure that if you don't have anything, let's say you weren't allocating any money to something like technical personnel, you simply fill it in with a 0 and make sure that the amounts always match. And that's the budget table. It's pretty easy. Relatedly, let's get into the specific expenses that are not permitted in your budget table. Be sure to review the what may not be funded section of the guidelines to ensure that only eligible expenses are listed in your table. So things like travel outside the city of Houston are obviously not permitted. Funding can't support paying deficits, loans, interest on loans, fines, penalties, litigation costs, nor can they support professional development training for individual applicants, like classes, coaching, conferences, workshops. The purchase of a single material or equipment item exceeding $250 is not permitted except rental costs directly affiliated with your project. Capital expenses like the purchase of property or land, building, construction or renovation, landscape adaptations are not permitted. Meals, refreshments, and catering expenses are also not permitted. So in the next tab after that, you'll find that you will then upload your work samples. It's a really crucial part of the application to demonstrate who you are and what your project's about, your artistic history, and a lot more to the panelists. Applicants like you must upload documentation of your work meant to demonstrate excellence in the proposed project or in your body of work. You may include up to 5 individual images or audio files and 5 PDFs, not to exceed a file size of 100 megs. Applicants are encouraged to include text descriptions to help panelists understand the work samples. Your PDFs could include links for audio and video samples with any passwords that could apply. Fiction or nonfiction manuscripts and other literary samples, articles, reviews, publications, sample publications, just as long as they don't exceed 10 pages. Images, JPEG, PNG, and your just standard audio and video file formats are all accepted. So you've gone through, you've logged into the portal, you have completed your profile, you've filled in your application, and you've submitted it successfully. Now what happens? This is an illustration of the life cycle of your application. So first, HAA staff like us receive it. We verify eligibility, make sure that your proof of residency is valid, proof of age, and that the project itself is eligible. It's not, doesn't contain any elements of programming or activities that aren't permitted, like fundraisers, for example. We ensure completeness and public presentation requirements, and then they move on once we have verified eligibility to the panels. So the panels are independent. We here at HAA do not score the applications at all. The panelists do, that are made up by artists and community members. And we use this competitive peer review process to score and rank eligible applications, like grant makers across the country. HAA Grants Committee receives the application next. So after the panelists, they receive your application, and then they will individually review it and look at it. They'll read all about your artistic programming proposal. They'll look at your work samples. Then they'll actually get together and they'll discuss it. And they'll discuss all the applications and all the eligible applications, I should say. And then they'll, after that, submit their final scores. So once we receive all of the panelists' final scores, we create what we call a recommendation packet, and then we submit those to the HAA Grants Committee. And the Grants Committee doesn't just review this scoring, they kind of review just our entire grants process to make sure that we have met the city and the community's expectations. And then if the committee signs off, the applications that are in the recommendation packet move on to the city of Houston, and they're forwarded to MOCA for approval before final approval from the mayor. So peer panels, they include individuals with a diversity of skills, self-identities, arts expertise and experience, ensuring that they're able to properly assess the merit of each application requesting city arts funding. We encourage everybody, even if individual applicants like you, to participate in a panel. It's really, really valuable. You not only get to have a voice in how city funding is allocated, through these city-funded arts grants, but you get to see the process from a completely different side. And I think that it really, and feedback from applicants is that it's really valuable as an applicant to know how the panelists are looking at these applications, what these discussions sound like, what they feel like, and what they're really looking for. What resonates with a panelist. And the best way to really be able to know that is to serve as a panelist yourself. So, I mean, if you're not on your phone right now, you can scan the QR code, or you could also just go to our website and I'll show you how. It's at the very top, funding and services, the panelist for grants. And then you just apply and fill out a really simple application. So after acceptance, after the mayor's final approval, the grantee would receive a contract from HAA, and once you sign your contract, the HAA Grants Division sends your first payment to the Finance Department. The processing of that first payment takes about 2 weeks for disbursement into your account that's on file. Then after you submit after your project has been complete, after your public presentation and event, you would submit at any time over the course of your grant term documentation showing that the project has come to an end, and that final report is required by all grantees. The final report is a form that all grantees are required to complete by the date listed in their grant contract, which would be the end of the grant term. It is the last step in the grants process, and it's used to demonstrate that you fulfilled all the deliverables within the contract. Essentially, that your proposal, as outlined in the application, happened, the public presentation happened, and we get to learn a little bit about it. And your feedback's really important, so that we know really how the process worked for you. The second or final payment comes after approval of the final report. So for your final report, the requirements are that you present your work via a public event and that you post that event to the cultural events calendar. You must also upload an example of the marketing materials showing credit that you are crediting support to the City of Houston and Houston Arts Alliance within that marketing material. There's like a logo pack you download and stick it on there. Financial documentation, the final report also requires you to list grant expenditures if you're a grantee, and work samples. Grantees are required to submit an image or link or video, something like that as documentation of the event. The grant term, once again, is 1 year from the award notification. Final reports are due 30 days after the end of the grant term. And that's it. So that about covers it from start to finish. This is the team. This is who we are. We're here to support you. I'm joined by Taylor and Colina. That's me, Sharif. And we also have our fabulous rest of the team, Val and Liana and Andrea, who we're all of service for you to help you through this process. So you can contact us anytime through that QR code, the Zendesk link. You could also find that link on the website. You could call us at that number, schedule an appointment with us ahead of that August 2nd deadline if you need any assistance. And that is it. So that was a lot, but we did it together. So let's dive right into like a Q&A. Does anybody have any questions?
Not currently, thank you.
Thank you to you for joining. Appreciate it. Anybody else have questions?
Yes, I have two questions, if you don't mind.
Anything, yeah. Ask away.
All right. Well, first of all, my name is Brandon. And thank you for having this. This is very, very beneficial and very helpful. My first question is, when you went over the budget, the expenses budget, the sheet, the top half, I know you explained the top half was like a profit in the budget.
Oh yeah, that top half was, I'll show you again. Also, by the way, on our website you could find the grant guidelines.
But the top half of the sheet, could you go into a little more detail about what that entails? And then my second question is about the eligibility. I know you're going through each point about what you need as far as being eligible, and one of the requirements said you have to be a nonprofit to be eligible. But I think I may have missed touching on that slide. I don't remember seeing that slide. So could you, because I'm a filmmaker, so of course I don't want to receive this grant to produce a film. So could you touch on that on those two things if you don't mind?
No, not at all. Thanks for your questions, Brandon, and I'm happy to make your acquaintance. So I'll answer the second question first because it's shorter. That some of those slides might have included information about organization grants and individual grants too. That obviously being a nonprofit would apply to the organization grants, like support for organizations. For the grant that we're talking about today, the SASE grant, support for artists and individual creatives, you do not have to be a nonprofit. You do not have to have an entity that is a 501c3. You just have to be an individual artist or creative in the city of Houston. That's all.
Okay.
And to your first question, the budget table. So the budget table, when you open it, you'll see like a set of directions, and it's really clear how to use the budget table. That top part is the income section. That's where you'll add all of your funding sources. The first column will be just a description. The second column will be the amount of the HEA grant. Let's say you're requesting $15,000. You would enter how much of that $15,000 is for, is from the city of Houston, which would probably be all of it. So you would put that on the top line, description, HEA grants, $15,000. And then in the third column, I'm giving a lot of examples, but you'll see it's just the top section is just all of the money that is you're using to create your project, to do your program that you want to do.
Okay.
Sorry, you go ahead.
No, I was saying, no, go ahead.
And that's it. And that top section had a third column for other funds separate from HEA, and that third column would be just where you would enter information about money that you're also going to use for your project that comes not from your grant but comes from somewhere else. And that could be zero or it could be something else. That just kind of depends. But that's it. The top section is the easiest part, in my opinion, of the whole thing. You just outline the money that you're going to use for your project, and that's all.
Okay, thank you very much. That was spot on, very helpful, and I appreciate the information.
Good, good. I wasn't sure if I was clear. Thanks, Brandon. I'm glad that makes sense. Okay, great. Does anyone else have any questions?
Yeah, I actually have a question now. So let's say hypothetically I'm a visual artist for a business that doesn't fall under the 501c nonprofit requirement for organizations. Would I
Mhm.
still be able to apply if I'm doing an arts project for them?
No, it has to be. That's a really, really, really good question. Something I've never really thought about. But yeah, your project that you apply for still has to be separate from from that organization, because this is at its very core an individual grant. It's to support an individual artist, and so that funding from the city of Houston, it can't be, it can't be used by an organization even without 501c3 status, like you mentioned, for their programming. It has to be for the individual's project.
Perfect. So I would just use this for individual projects then. Perfect.
Yeah. Mhm.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Um, any other questions?
Yeah, hi, I have a question. I'm an installation artist and I like looking on the application and everything, I see that y'all want an address or, an idea of a site that I might have in mind. If I don't have a site lined up, can I still apply, or do I really need to have a site ahead of time that's kind of locked in order to apply?
Um, that's again excellent question. I'm not just saying that. That's a really good question. So you can still apply when you are going to talk about your project location in your application. You just say that. I mean, and
Okay.
that's you could have somewhere in mind. You could have somewhere that you've reached out to and something that is even your wish list, and panelists, they understand that um, you might you might not have that location locked in. It might require you to have the grant. I don't know what the circumstances could be, but it's absolutely okay if it's tentative. Absolutely.
Okay. Awesome. That's exactly what I was hoping you would say.
Good, good. I'm glad to hear that.
I have a question adding on to that. So there isn't like a location that's out of bounds. I would say maybe not that it's outside of the Houston, like if it's within the Houston area, there isn't a location that would fall outside of the grant. I guess that kind of makes sense.
So it's like hard to answer that because I don't want to give start giving examples and then leave something out, but I'll give you an example. So, like you said, it has to be in city of Houston limits. But like there was an example recently of somebody that hosted it at a brewery. And so the public presentation was taking place at a brewery, and initially it was flagged as maybe it was going to be ineligible because it's a brewery, but the brewery had a space that was open to the general public. People took their kids and babies and stuff to that public space at the brewery grounds. And so it ended up being eligible. It ended up being okay. So you just have to make sure that that location does not exclude anybody. It can't exclude youth. It can't exclude people of a certain gender, a certain age range. It just has to be so that anybody of the general public could come to it on a first come first served basis, could walk into that space or venue or whatever it is that the public presentation event is taking place in.
Perfect.
Does that
Thank
make
you.
sense?
Yes.
Okay, good, good. Thank you. Any others? Any other questions? I'll just hold out for a little longer in case anyone thinks of anything. Take your time.
I guess I have one. What has been your, I would say it's hard because y'all have done a lot of different projects for artists and stuff. What has been one of your personal favorites?
Oh, wow, that's a good question. Um, um, there was one that we went to is um the grantee's name is escaping me. It was a dance exhibition at the match. It was incredible. We went last year, we went as a team, and it was mind blowing. The performers, I mean, I'm a lover of all Houston arts, but dance is something like admittedly I don't have like just like a lot of touch points with, and I don't watch a lot of dance. But this grantee, I mean, it was mesmerizing, and it like opened up this whole new like art discipline for me, and just made me absorb dance. I mean, I even like watch the dance, like I watch dance on YouTube now. Like it's just something that was really mind blowing, and I wish I could remember the grantee's name or the project's name, but it was incredible. And um, yeah, thanks for bringing that up. Thanks for asking that because now I'm just remembering that. It just makes me feel it's a good feeling, good memory. Any other questions from anyone? All right, then I will let you all go. So once again, I'm Sharif Rabi, Houston Arts Alliance, joined by Taylor and Colina. And thank you so much for joining us today. And I look forward to reviewing the eligibility of all of your applications. I hope you all apply to SASE, to every grant. And yeah, and I wish you the very best of luck. Um, and yeah, take care of yourselves. Reach out to us if you need anything, and if we could be of assistance in any sort of way. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pleasure. Thanks.